Paul, it's great to meet you. Thank you, sir, for taking a minute out for the show.
Yeah, no, excited to chat.
Me too. I don't know how you keep up with all the things that you do, but we're going to get into it. We're going to figure out the mystery behind keeping all of these entities together, what kind of glue you use. But to begin that, I want to know how many seismic waves or how many ripples did living through that pandemic create that you still deal with in modern day right now?
Oh, that's a great question. One massive ripple. So what happened during the pandemic is a lot of brick and mortar stores who were closed obviously took a lot of their budget and put it towards their e-commerce business. And at the time, the way a lot of businesses were getting potentially all of their customer base or a significant portion was in Facebook and Instagram advertising.
Yeah.
And so if all of a sudden you have more advertisers for the same platform or keywords, whatever, then you end up, increasing the price, the cost per thousand, the CPM cost per thousand views. At the same time, Apple allows you to opt out of sharing your data. If you've noticed when you download apps on your iPhone, it says, do you want to share or not share your data? Well, most people say, I don't want to share my data. So for advertisers, that means they can't target the demographics that they want to target. So all of a sudden, not only is the cost to advertise on Facebook and Instagram higher, but you have a wider net to cast with your advertising dollars, which means the cost to acquire a customer might go, depending on your product category and all that, from something like $10 to $40.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got a product that sells for $40 where you could have afforded $10 in advertising, all of a sudden you can't do anything. And so for our businesses that do the contract packaging for, service businesses, contract packaging for food and beauty and supplements and things like that, all of a sudden you have a lot of those brands that aren't getting the customers, can't afford it, or our fulfillment, our 3PL, third party logistics fulfillment business, all of a sudden we have, about a dozen customers declare bankruptcy or can't pay their bills or whatever. So, massive, massive impact in 2023,
Yeah.
and really the first half of 2024 that came out, and it's like I think it had a little bit of a delay factor for all of that to finally sort of drain a lot of these businesses and cause them distress that a lot of people, that I talk to in out there in sort of the e-commerce world and service businesses that, I mean, there's a whole supply chain ripple effect that happens
Yeah.
for everybody, down to the label company that makes labels for bottles. They're, seeing the same impact. So when people talk about the state of the economy, there's the economy in like the big business picture, but there's I would say a microeconomy, but it's quite large in terms of these e-commerce businesses that rely on e-commerce and relied on a particular method of getting their customers, that when that kind of collapses, it has a massive, massive effect.
So, having such an acute business brain like that, explaining it in such a good way, I'm curious. Everybody's really hung up on being in the recession and everything getting expensive. And I remember when this pandemic was happening and people were doing takeout and people were finding ways for the economy to move forward. Everybody was like, all we kept hearing was everything's going to be okay. But I knew in the back of my mind, this is all going to come back to get us. Like it's like a drain that keeps getting clogged. It will work, but it's finally going to get stopped, and you're going to have to pay to get it unclogged. Is that kind of what happened with the recession post the whole COVID thing? Is that we just prices had to go up. It had to abate what happened before. Is that kind of logical to go by?
Yeah, I'm not a macroeconomist, but
Right.
anytime you have a fast shock to a giant system,
Yeah.
it takes time for that system to get back to equilibrium.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what, we saw
Yeah.
is, you had, if all of a sudden your gross national product like is crippled in a moment, and then you print money at the same time, you're going to have impact from that.
Yeah.
Just, anytime you have such a large system that you do something rapid, or even putting tariffs on, immediately, like there's a shock to a system. So there's anytime you don't do anything gradually in a large system, you end up having effects that take time to get back to some state of equilibrium. And I think we're still coming out of that, trying to get to that state of equilibrium. So that, is like just with what we're seeing here. I mean, I think from our perspective, we're starting to see some of these brands. find other methods for sales. Like I'm now a partner in a TikTok agency that, assuming TikTok sticks around,
Yeah.
um, that's an area right now where people have an opportunity. It's not yet bombarded, and crowded like some of these other markets are that increase the prices. Not every, people are barely on TikTok Shop from a brand perspective. They might have a TikTok account to do content and try to drive people to their Shopify store, but they're not yet fully embracing the e-commerce element that, something like TikTok has, and the fact that it's driven by creators out there making content on like an affiliate basis to bring your customers in. So it's a unique system where they have an embedded affiliate program with over 1 million creators out there making content for the sake of getting affiliate commissions. So from a brand perspective, you've got a new shift into a new method and a new place to be able to do that. So there's some things like that that some brands are starting to figure out, like how, they can survive, or they've just retracted and retrenched and figured out. Like we had one of our largest customers, 50% of their multi-million dollar business was based on Facebook and Instagram ads. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're upside down. They had to cut the ads and their business went in half overnight. Again, shock to a system. So, yeah, I think that's something we're seeing people either, like that retrench and then start to grow back from that and figure out where they can do things to get customers,
Yeah.
or getting into some of these new, emerging marketplaces like a TikTok.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. If we had to boil down all of the things that you do for a living on a daily basis, you were in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids in the back of the room says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
Uh, I sell things online. I make things. I ship things. And I help market things. I help put things out there in places where you see it online.
Okay.
And I also do a lot of connecting different people together that I think I can help. So if this person needs help on something and this person can solve that, and I can help put these people together or help add value after putting it together, I do a lot of that too.
What did you want?
That's the third grader way of
That
saying it, I
is
guess.
totally cool. You did wonderful. What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I think I didn't have any idea
Okay.
what I wanted to be at that time. So no crazy weird dream. Right before going to college, I either wanted to be a theoretical physicist or get into business, and decided on business. And then I aimed that towards the entertainment industry
Yeah.
because I like the idea of being close to the product that a lot of people pay attention to versus, went to the Wharton School. A lot of people went into finance and accounting where you're, on the 100th floor of a building and you're a cog in the machine, and you're so far away from the end product, um, that I liked being connected to the end product. And so being, as a film and TV producer and writer, you're right there in the front lines of a product that many, many people see. And anyway, so that's what I did for 9 years before getting into the e-commerce world and all this other stuff.
Yeah. So what were the early seeds that were planted into you? Are you originally from LA?
I was born in New Jersey, but moved out here when I was 5, so out to a suburb of Los Angeles, so more suburbanite LA person.
Okay. So like the movie set for a Steven Spielberg movie in the 80s.
Yeah,
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 that kind of vibe.
basically.
I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it. Anytime someone says the suburbs of LA, I just think about that pan back at the beginning of Poltergeist or E.T. where it's like, all right,
Yeah.
I got it. I see that neighborhood.
Well, basically the mountains that I'm looking at outside my window, my office, is where like Bonanza and Gunsmoke, like all the old
Okay.
Westerns were filmed like right out in these hills here.
Okay, that's cool. So, what were those seeds that were planted into you to became this entrepreneurial business mindset?
I think it's the combination of left brain and right brain where you're being creative, you're problem solving, you're growing something, building something. And I always tell people, when they ask like, what is, is an entrepreneur, made or born? And I said, or what is the definition of an entrepreneur? And I always say that it's the people who look at entrepreneurship based on money are not really entrepreneurs. It's the entrepreneur is somebody who enjoys the journey of building something.
Yeah.
Money might come from that, but that's not the motivator. You get the enjoyment of taking an idea and growing it,
Yeah.
and that, that excitement of and whatever it may be, that you're building. You don't even necessarily have to have a passion for that, product or service or whatever. Like, as most people say, do what you're passionate about. But the passion comes from building something.
Yeah. Who's your favorite entrepreneur in the world?
Oh, I don't have favorite entrepreneurs.
Okay.
I don't look to other people because I don't know them. In some cases, they got lucky.
Yeah.
Right place, right time, right product. So they may be a horrible entrepreneur, but literally just rode the wave of something.
Yep.
I don't know who they are as people behind the scenes, so I don't have anybody that I necessarily like look up to as an entrepreneur or say, oh yeah, they're my hero or guru or whatever. I will say, ironically, Gary Vaynerchuk,
Yeah.
a lot of I like how he's very tactical about talking about, what's happening in the business marketplace, and I find he's very spot on with everything that he talks about with, what I am thinking and seeing. And in fact, I'm doing a TikTok marketing agency where we have a live selling studio in my warehouse here. He's recently said, 2025 is going to be the year of live selling. So I'm like, okay, I see it. He sees it, So I find I'm in tune with a lot of his thinking on stuff.
So I'm going to hone in a little bit more on that previous question and ask you this. In your life, who has been that inspiration or hero for you? Do you have one?
No, I wouldn't say there's somebody like I look towards, to emulate or, do something as, from an entrepreneurial perspective. A lot of people are like, oh, Steve Jobs or whatever, like, yeah, but everybody has flaws and everybody has issues and everybody has, things that, so I don't look to somebody. I look to myself,
Yeah.
and it's me and what I want to do and what I'm doing. I don't externalize it in that way.
So, how do you balance all of this? You have to take care of yourself and evolve as a human being, but you're also dealing with a lot of different entities. And like you said, you're surveying the cusp of what's next, and everything's evolving and changing. Like even with the TikTok marketplace and all of these things that are happening. How do you keep all of this in check and balance it every day? What motivates you?
Well, I guess what motivates it is being able to see an opportunity to do something to improve a situation and then being able to grow that opportunity. Like, that's the motivating factor. And that's what's led to having all of these different businesses that are different but all connect together because they all really grew out of a need spotted while in the other business. And so that is something that I like. And I like kind of moving from one to the other and back again all throughout the day, every day. You've got to have good systems in
Yep.
place, and people are really the strength of the system, but you have to have it where it sort of runs, and then you're helping out here and there. Really, you're putting out fires or making big decisions. Or I do a lot of business development, working with potential large customers, or or even doing things like this where someone might watch this and be like, oh yeah, they sounds like a cool guy for fulfillment. Like, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. Of all of the things that you've done in your life, business-wise, what was the one project or period of your life where it was tough, but you learned the most or you grew the most?
Um, So tough, I would say, the past year and a half, really, like I'd mentioned before, coming out of COVID and having a bunch of clients that have their economic distress, which then causes us issues, and having to make decisions, on our end to adapt, to that. Um, so I think that is probably the tough thing when you've been literally growing for 20 years and you have to take a momentary, pullback. It's
Yes.
tough to do.
Yeah.
Now we're, I think, coming out of that, but um, still when you have to do that, that's, we added a new building at the beginning of COVID, based on the growth trajectory and all that. And all of a sudden you find out almost every client in that building can't pay their bill.
Yes.
So, okay, we have to drop that building. And so the idea of like retracting from something that was this exciting growth,
Yeah.
you know,
That's a big deal. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, you ran into an 18-year-old version of you, you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you impart, and would that version of you listen?
I don't know that I would give any different advice. I mean, it
Okay,
gets down to really not having a regret for the journey that you've been on.
sure.
And so I don't know that I would have any particular advice that um, would affect anything. I mean, the biggest two things I would say that it's a slightly different version of the same question is what was shocking or unexpected to you when you went into business? Is kind of a version of that. So in a sense, I might have given myself a heads up about it, but it didn't matter. It was a learning thing anyway.
Yeah,
Is you think it's all about the product and sales, and in essence, most businesses live or die by the employees and the people. And you realize all of a sudden you have to navigate personalities. Um, you're a therapist in some cases, or you're recognizing somebody may be a great employee, but they're in the complete wrong position because of their skill sets.
yeah,
If they're a more left brain or more right brain person and they're in a role that is not suited for them, you're frustrated, they're frustrated, you're upset with them, they're upset with you, but you're like, well, wait a minute, maybe you're just in the wrong role because you're
yeah,
a smart person and you put them in the right role and all of a sudden they thrive.
yeah,
So learning the human mechanics of business is not something they can teach you or do teach you in school. And so you end up out there. Also, I think most business owners tend to be people who, for their career, have surrounded themselves with like-minded people with the same, levels of the way they view the world or what's important to them and all that. And so you get out into the world and you find out like some people maybe don't even want to be promoted. They don't want the stress. They like their everyday thing. They like going home and watching the sports game and or going bowling on the weekend. Like that's what they enjoy about life and they don't necessarily have that. And so you're like, I don't understand that. I can't compute that. And they have a different motivation and you just giving them respect in the role that they're doing is all that they're looking for
yep,
from the job. And so there's different people in the world with different worldviews and different ways in which they view things. So adapting to that
yeah,
and understanding that not everybody is like this sort of driven person with, knowing all this stuff about everything and running and gun like and also recognizing that people who have the skill set of critical thinking skills and the ability to know when to do something on their own, when to ask for help, and that they know how to make the right decisions and assess all the variables. That skill that you assume everybody in the world has is extremely, extremely rare.
yeah,
Most people need to be told what to do and feel comfortable being told what to do, and have a hard time being self-driven and knowing how to assess and look at the variables and make the decisions based on those variables. So when you find those employees, and by the way, it doesn't even matter if they went to college or where they went, that kind of mindset is one of the most important things in business to
yeah,
have. And so understanding that also as a business owner and spotting um, so again, if I were to go back and give advice, maybe I would give a heads up to these things. So I don't know if it would have affected the journey or not, but I find it interesting.
yeah, absolutely. Are you afraid of AI? How do you view the advent and evolution and this kind of tidal wave of AI that we're in right now?
Um, I mean, I love it. In fact, I'm working with an AI related project. Um, and I think, like with anything, anytime you have a technological advancement, people are always like, oh, it's going to ruin whatever the current situation is. What it does is it shifts things. It shifts people's jobs. You have new job concepts get created.
Yep.
All of that kind of shifts. And so I also think right now we're not really in the phase of AI. We're in the phase of like big data, where it's just a lot of data being amalgamated. And the idea of the true AI from the science fiction world where it really learns at the highest levels, we're just, there's some people that are kind of, tapping into that, but it's still in a certain sense based on, is it really learning or is it just extrapolating data and, from that? So when we truly get to the proper AI thing where you don't end up asking the prompt to make a photo and it's got six fingers on it and it doesn't understand that that's not like when it really understands and can really compute the way a human brain can, that's when society is going to change, I think, in a big way, just like it changed with social media. You look at all the revolutions of like industrial revolution and, the, social media revolutions, all these different things that have drastically changed society. That will be one of the next ones.
So, of all of these things that you've done and evolved to in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I would say building these businesses, being able to build something from scratch, multiple things from scratch, employing people and giving them like livelihoods for many years and a place they enjoy, coming to work, solving, things out there, whatever the needs are for folks. I also get enjoyment just connecting people, even if I get nothing from it. I think there's something, I don't know if you call it karmic or whatever about that, but the idea of just again being able to help other people, build things or do stuff. So I would say, yeah, that's probably what I enjoy most is the idea of creating things and building things.
So, everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Wow. Like, I don't know. Anybody's ever asked that. Um, I often would say like I'm sort of Zen about a lot of things because in a weird way you have to be. If you've got a lot of pressures of being an entrepreneur, people think it's this like glamorous, lifestyle with a lot of vacationing and money and all. It's literally the opposite.
Yeah.
You're under constant pressure, constant things rely on you. And that, um, yeah, I would say that, I
Yeah,
guess.
I get it. So, with that being said, why do you do it? What is it that drives you to do this?
I like the freedom that what you put in is more directly related to what you get out.
Yeah.
And so the movie business, while exciting because you can be creative and, work with a writer and developing a script, as a producer or even as a co-writer or writer or whatever, like you can be creative, but you're at the mercy of a system that, I'd gotten to the point where it wasn't about who I knew anymore. I knew the people. It was having the right project at the right time in front of the right person. And there's no way of predicting that what they were looking for at that moment was what you had to put in front of them.
Yeah.
So all you ended up doing is spending every lunch, dinner, or lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, 7 days a week, meeting people and basically saying, how about this? How about this? How about this? In essence, and hoping you connect somewhere. That has nothing to do with how good you are or how creative you are or how hard you work. It really it starts to get down to random chance.
Yeah.
Including this big script I sold for like $1 million, really came down to that kind of random chance where a company happened to be looking for something at that moment that this fit with that need. And, they were like, we need to have this. So, how to that is tough when you want to let you're somebody who's like, I want to build and grow it. And, like, yet you're now up really to like a certain level of random chance. And so being an entrepreneur allows you to be like, ooh, if I could put time in over here, I know I could get more sales. If we could put this product out there, we could do that. If we can, build this thing, that'll happen. Like the more you put in, I mean, you're still at the mercy of customers and, or partners or vendors. There's a lot of moving parts, but it's a lot more aligned with, if you can be good at what you do, then good results will happen
Yeah.
to a degree.
Yeah. I get it. So, has anything happened to this $1 million script?
No, there's some great Hollywood stories behind it.
So, this is
They
my thing.
spent another $1.3 million rewriting it.
Wow. So this is the thing that blows me away. I will talk to people that have sold scripts, books that turned into scripts, all of that. And like Someone told me at one point James Cameron bought it, but they just shelved it. Why is that
Yeah.
happening in Hollywood? Why are they spending all this money and they don't do anything with it? Are they just waiting just in case the time is right to do it?
No. So I forget the number, but it's like one in 100 scripts, I think, that get bought get made or something like that.
Oh,
The reason tends to be getting a lot of moving parts to come together.
yeah, yeah,
So you not only did you buy the script, well, now you have to find the right director, and they have to like it. They have the changes they want to make. Then you've got to find the actor. You get like all these pieces, and sometimes the pieces fall apart, whatever. And but one of the biggest things that people don't know about, beyond just getting all those moving parts to align to get to the point where, and there's only a certain number of movies they want to make a year and put out. So you have to have enough in the pipeline to make sure. I mean, that's really the thing. You have to have enough in the pipeline because a lot of these moving parts won't come together on different scenarios. So you have to have enough that will to hit the quantity that you need to put out.
yeah.
And because it takes years to get through that whole process, you need to have a lot of things in the pipeline because things may fall apart for different reasons along the way. But one of the big things that happens is when you have a lot of failures of movies at a studio, they fire the head of the studio. And when the new person comes in, they do not want to continue with anything that was bought under their predecessor because then if it's successful, their predecessor gets the credit, not them.
Ah, gotcha.
So they put everything on the shelf. And by the way, this is a lot of studios change their people every few years
Yeah,
because they have a down year. Okay, just like in sports, get rid of the manager or the coach or
yep.
um, and the new person coming in is like, I got to put my stamp on it. I got to bring in things that have my
Yep.
name on it that I was the one who bought for the studio. And so a lot of stuff gets shelved just because of changeover like that.
Thank you for that. That makes complete total sense. Paul, if anyone wants to reach out, learn more, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
Either my LinkedIn or I set up my own website, paulschrater.com. So that's Shrat as in Tom, ER. There is a famous Paul Schrader who wrote Taxi Driver and written and directed a bunch of movies. I've met him. It's a slightly different spelling, but
Awesome.
we had a fun chat about where our names came from.
That's cool. Very cool. Paul, this has been absolutely illuminating. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time, your wisdom, and best of luck here have a great holiday season.
Oh, thank you. You too. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.